We're looking at the difference between an expectation and a boundary. I'm actually of the mind that eventually you will get to a place where now you dissolve boundaries and you become like a sieve. It is through the process of experiencing people. It is who they are in your life, not what they do in your life. So it's the energy that they come with. It's not only the skills, the things that they do for you or what they do to you and vice versa, but it is how they show up in your life that is where the value is. So in real life terms, maybe that looks like your significant other doesn't do the dishes, but they are a stable constant in your life. For those of us who are a feminine essenced being, it's very important that we have a stable constant in our life. It doesn't have to be a person. You can create it yourself, but it is a really important piece. Does that make sense? I know that can be a little bit of a challenging thing to get, the difference between how, like, what someone is doing and who they're being in your life. But it's also the same type of thing with what you're doing and who you're being, the difference between that. Someone can be a teacher. And so how they show up in their life is going to be teaching without them having to do teaching. They teach because of who they are. So now, when we're looking at the difference between an expectation and a boundary, oh, there's so much I can say about a boundary, because I'm actually of the mind that eventually you will get to a place where now you dissolve boundaries and you become like a sieve. Usually we have to, and I need each of you to identify where you are right now. If you are coming out of a state of being where you have allowed people to walk all over you, to, you're coming out of people pleasing, or maybe, you're coming out of abusive situations, etc. Boundaries usually are like the first thing that you need. To have a boundary for the feminine, who is the great expanse, the feminine who is the void, who is the dissolving and the softening, to put too much focus on having to have boundaries of this is my boundary and I have to have this because it's almost an energy of I need protection. So if you are in a state where you have not been protected, it's a very obvious next place that I need protection. So I want you to just be aware that if that's where you are, be mindful that that's where you are and it's okay. But a boundary is to be set. Number one, self-integrity for yourself. So if you're going to have a boundary, you should be honoring your boundary. You need to embody the boundary. Number two, also letting go of the expectation that someone has to meet it, that they should meet it. Because now you are coming from an energy that says, I'm trying to change you, which is not love and acceptance of who someone is. The boundary is about you. So examining what has been happening that is creating issue in my life, or that I am allowing really in my life. And now, what is the boundary, but also who am I going to be? If you don't be it, then it becomes a hypocritical energy. I don't mean like, oh, well, I'm that, so everyone else should be that. I'm considerate of emotions, and so everyone should be considerate of emotions. Is this making sense? Now, the next phase of that is the sieve, is to become like the sieve, where you can be, and this is a more advanced level, I get it, but you can be in the presence of others and you do not take in to yourself, where you do not take their energy into your identity. I don't see many people talking about the sieve. Everyone talks about you have to have boundaries. The next level of that is to be a sieve, because the feminine wants to be penetrated. I know that sounds like naughty, but if you about it, right? If you think about it, we want to be in enmeshed, but not to hold on to it. So real life example of what this could look like. Let's say that you have a grandparent, two different generations, and you have a grandparent that has some ways of viewing the world that you believe are outdated, that maybe you think are, I don't know, misogynist, maybe racist. Let's use racist. That one's a fun one. You notice that when you're around them, it's almost like what they say is like a dagger when you're around them. It just pisses you off that they're saying, I don't know, some ridiculous thing about a football team logo. I don't know. But let's just pretend that they're saying something that really is irking you because you see the world in a very different way than they see the world. Now you feel like I'm going to put up a boundary where maybe you communicate to them, in my presence, I will not tolerate hearing this kind of language. Essentially what that is I have a trigger still, and I don't want to cross that with you. Then the next level of it is eventually you get to a place where you allow and accept that person for who they are. And you don't take it in, you don't take it personally, and it flows through. But the healing has to happen there in order for you to be able to get to that phase. You have to heal and integrate that trigger. You have to recognize, wait, why is that triggering to me? Let's talk about this whole Rachel Hollis thing, because y'all know I do not shy away from talking about an uncomfortable topic. This is not to say I agree with Rachel Hollis or that I don't agree with her. But what I want to do is show the difference in where you may be, okay? And where the focus really needs to be, because you all are in the void. There were quite a few people who did not get that video at all. And that's okay, because they were just not in the place for it. So let's say that you saw that video and it was triggering, meaning you got angry or you got frustrated or you got sad or whatever emotion came up. Number one, it's okay to feel the emotion of that. And then recognize that that's hurting because there's something there that it's hitting on. Is it because, you know, maybe you see yourself as not being as valuable because you work in XYZ? Or is it because you see her as being so much far ahead? Or you have something, you know, a projection around being wealthy and what that means? I saw it for sure. I was like, well, that's unfortunate that she said it in that way, but there wasn't a trigger there. P.S. You are not going to get to a place where you just like, unless you're dead, where you have no emotion about things. I really would like for you to keep your emotions and your humanity. Please. But when we see these things, number one, we can never control what another person is doing or how they perceive the world. What we can do is look at, wait, why was that triggering me? Why did that hurt me so much? Why did that make me so angry? Then it will move through. It doesn't mean you don't see things, and it doesn't mean that you don't care anymore. But now it becomes about you becoming the sovereign or the queen in your life, in your own life, and are no longer trying to queen everybody else's life and trying to make them be XYZ.